Today's Talk About It Tuesday question is, can you explain the Rockefeller Trust Fund waterfall method in layman's terms? And is this a proven and legit way to build wealth for the next generation, or is it another false advertising money scheme aimed at applying for life insurance only to build revenue for other entities? Well, I'm going to break it down and then you decide whether or not it is I wouldn't say it's a scheme, whether it's a technique that works for you or not. And let me just start off by saying this. There is absolutely zero evidence that the Rockefellers actually used this method. There's no representative of the Rockefeller family, no heir in the Rockefeller family who has stated that this is the technique that they use, but it is associated with the Rockefeller family, so it's called that method. Now, whether they actually use it or not, I don't know. Let me say this, it is not a wealth building strategy. It's not a strategy for building wealth intergenerationally. It is a technique for preserving and transferring wealth with the minimization of loss intergenerationally, right? So let's just clear the air. It is not about wealth building. It is about the transfer of wealth with the minimization of loss intergenerationally. And that should be clear even if we just look at the Rockefeller family today. So for those who don't know, the Rockefellers made their money from the Standard Oil Company at the beginning of the 20th century. So in 1912, they were estimated to have a net worth of $900 million in 1912, which is the equivalent today of about $28 billion. And if we look at, there are about 200 heirs left in the family today, and their net worth is about $10 billion, right? So they're at almost a third of what they were at that time. So clearly it's not a strategy for growing in the generational wealth. But if you look at them compared to a lot of the other families who made their money during that time, who squandered it by the third, fourth generation, they've done well to preserve a third of their all-time high, right? Especially since Standard Oil got broken up because it was a monopoly and all these other things. So the first part of the strategy, if I break it down in layman's terms, is not novel to you at all. It's not special. It is not abnormal. It is very standard. What the family did was create a series of irrevocable trusts. And I've done videos on trust, so I don't want to go too deep into a trust, but there's revocable and irrevocable. Irrevocable has different characteristics, meaning one, it cannot be changed ever. It's written in stone, right? But also in terms of taxes, right? So it has its own tax obligation, which is different from a revocable trust. It, like I said, it's written in stone. So it's designed to transfer wealth from one generation to another, and or to manage assets and for the benefit of the beneficiaries, right? And I know that sounds complex, but a grantor is the one who puts stuff in a trust. A trustee manages the trust and carries out the wishes of the trustor or the grantor, right? And the grantor can put whatever stipulations they want, meaning they can only get money if they're not a drug addict, or they can only get money if they're a certain age. They can only get this amount of money per year, whatever the stipulations are. So what does that do? One, it prevents frivolous spending, right? So you can't just get a whole bunch of money and squander it. You're going to get it however how it's written in the trust. So it's a way to prevent, just blowing all the money like generations tend to do. It prevents loss from liabilities that are created by family members, because the trust actually owns and controls the assets. So if they get into legal trouble or if they get into debt, that money is protected and doesn't go to creditors or lawsuits. It minimizes taxes because it has, like I said, its own tax obligation, but Also, you prevent estate taxes, right? So if it was just in a will and they got millions and millions of dollars, then it would be subject to estate taxes, which would take a big chunk of change back to the government from that. So it minimizes taxes, it minimizes frivolous spending, it shields the money, the assets from liability. That part is not new, not special. So what is this waterfall method? This is, again, what's been associated with the Rockefellers, but I'm going to tell you, I've never heard anyone claim this except people who sell cash value life insurance. So I'm going to be honest. I've never heard anybody else say the Rockefellers do this except people who are selling cash value life insurance. So let's explain this waterfall method. So allegedly, inside the trust, one of the stipulations of the trust is that each generation that is born into the family, the trust actually has to take out a cash value, permanent life insurance policy on every child that's born. And obviously, when you buy life insurance at a young age, it's a lot cheaper, right? And whatever the price is. It stays that way. So unlike term, which is different, which ends at a term, and then if you want to renew, it's a higher premium. So they buy this cash value life insurance policy when the child is born. So it takes about 5 years for it to mature, but the amount of cash value is minuscule at 5 years. It can take decades, right, for it to accumulate cash value. So that whole term cash value is deceptive because it's not cash value meaning you get paid this cash. It means there's a portion set aside that you can borrow against. That's the cash value. So it has a death benefit, but a portion is set aside as cash value, that's the term they use, that you can borrow against. And if the person dies, right, if you die before, if the owner of the policy dies before that money is paid back, then that's deducted from the death benefit. Otherwise, you can pay it back and it renews the cash value and can be borrowed against again later. So the waterfall method is twofold. One, eventually everyone dies, right? And the trust becomes the beneficiary of the life insurance policy, the death benefit. So upon the person's death, then the trust gets a cash infusion to, again, invest in whatever assets or investments it already has. So it replenishes money into the trust. And that, again, I don't know what the death benefit is. It could be $1 million, millions, who knows? I don't know. But whatever it is, it goes back into the trust so that it replenishes its investments. The other portion of it is that since it builds up cash values, they allegedly use that as leverage, meaning they have some way that and they have, again, multiple trusts because irrevocable means you can't change it. They have, somehow they have, I don't know if they have a board that decides, but allegedly if family members want to take out a loan, they can bypass going to a bank and having to qualify and go right to their family and borrow from the cash value of these life insurance policies. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know what their qualifications would be or not. I'm sure they're not just handing out cash because then that would just be kind of silly. But allegedly that, is the case. So it's a way of being able to preserve some wealth over time, but obviously you see it's going to diminish. If nothing happens, right, if the investments aren't growing inside the trust, it's going to diminish over time. It just slows the loss of wealth over generations. So that's pretty much how it works. So is it a scheme, a scam? I wouldn't say it's a scam. Is it the best strategy for most people? I wouldn't think so, because one, your whole family has to be on board, right? Everybody has to be in alignment and everybody has to agree to do this, and everybody, and your family has to be organized like the Rockefellers. They have so much structure in place. They have so much wealth management in place, and they're born into that understanding that this is the process that we use to preserve wealth in our family. You'd have to get your entire family on board for this to be really effective. Can you use a trust in general? Absolutely. If you have things you want to put in a trust, you can do the same thing. You can protect whatever you create from frivolous spending, from lawsuits, from creditors, from estate taxes. Most people don't have enough assets that it's a major problem, or they don't have to worry about a will being contested, not a major problem, but it's absolutely a tool for transferring wealth with the minimization of loss. So I wouldn't say it's a scam, but I also wouldn't say it's super necessary. And here's the thing, you can borrow from any asset, right? So you can borrow, if you have a house, you can borrow against it, right? That's called refinancing or a HELOC. If you have, I don't know, a brokerage account, you can borrow against it, right? So you get a margin loan, right? You can borrow against any asset that you have. You don't have to borrow against a life insurance policy. And usually the life insurance policies, like I said, the premiums are super high. So I don't know if that's necessarily the best strategy for everybody. Trusts are good tools. Everybody doesn't need one. And you don't really need it for the leverage, because you can leverage any asset that you have that you might be able to grow probably faster and better than a cash value life insurance policy. So that's my take on it. I'd love to hear your take on it. Anybody who's tried to use the strategy, or if you're considering using the strategy, I'd love to hear from you. But please like, share, subscribe. Come on, you gotta like, share, or subscribe. That's how the algorithms work. I'm not doing it for my ego. I'm doing it because the algorithms work that way, and the only way for the social media to push this thing out there is when you like, share, or subscribe. So please do that for me. I'd love to hear, again, your comments, but keep the questions coming, and I'll see you next Tuesday.